All right.
You are on, Pjae.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Just want to take just to start. We're going to start off here with just saying so. Thank you so much for coming today. We're very excited about our guest, so I'm not going to talk long. I'm going to go ahead and get to her very quickly. Michelle, I'm going to go ahead since this was such a great idea of yours. I'm going to have you do a treatment for us, please.
Well, I would love to, and my dog might bark because there's lots of noise outside. So it's just.
Well, that'll just be a part of the prayer. No worries. That'll be a part of the treatment.
Barking in the background. Yes. So thank you, Pjae, and I'm so excited about today. Let us just take a deep breath, eyes closed if that feels comfortable. And let's just sit back into, rest into the infinite power and presence of love, of light, of energy that is here and now, in, as, around, and through everything and everyone, including us, right here on this call. I am so grateful for this opportunity that we have with this amazing light in the world, Reverend Deborah Johnson, to deepen into our understanding of humanity, to deepen in our care, our compassion, our kindness, and our love. I am so grateful for this group of people who have come together and said yes for today. I know, affirm and accept that this time is richly, deeply, and profoundly blessed. And we call it good, and in the calling of it good, we let it be. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I just want to remind everyone, and Rev D is going to be talking about this as well, but we do encourage questions all the time, but this particular talk as well, we really want to encourage some questions. She'll have us set up for a few minutes to just kind of set things up and then open everything up for questions. So let me just get right to introducing Rev D. So many people know her. She's been around for a long time. We actually met. I can't remember when it was, 2007, 2009, did a peace march in Dallas with CSL and Reverend Pjae Weldis. She is the founding spiritual director of Inner Light Ministries in Santa Cruz, California, and a founding member of Agape International Spiritual Center in LA. She serves on the Leadership Council of AGNT and has been an instructor at Holmes Institute since she graduated from Holmes Institute in 1996. She's a lifelong social justice advocate and a diversity trainer. She is the inaugural recipient of the new Thought Walden Award for spiritually guided activism. In 1984, she set precedent for the inclusion of sexual orientation in California's Civil Rights Bill. So today her topic is what's in a pronoun, gender made simple. So I'm just going to ask you to join with Rev D and myself as she helps us to demystify the relationship between sex and gender by addressing so many questions. I'm going to stop now and just go ahead and let Rev D take off with it. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. Yeah. Take a breath. You're going to hear me saying that quite a bit. Take a breath. It helps us absorb it all. So let me tell you a little bit about the genesis of this particular presentation. I was on a panel at, I guess, the summertime at the Parliament of the World Religions. And it was a panel on new thought and our approach to inclusion around issues of sexuality. It featured the heads of Hillside and Agape and UFBL and CSL, and they threw me in there in the mix to actually explain a few things. And it wasn't until right before the panel that this model came to me of a graphic way of displaying what some of the issues were, and it was a big hit. And I promised so many of the people who were in attendance that I would present it to their communities, Reverend Michelle Whittington was like, right there, come on, you got it. It's like, you got it. You got to bring this. So I'm actually going to be doing a presentation on November 4th in the morning.
Yes.
Okay. So
9 to 11:30 PST.
Yes, it exactly. So I'm saying that to say that what you're going to see here is a little primer to the primer. It's a little primer to the primer. It may not answer all of your questions, but what I'm hoping to get today is to discern what some of those questions actually are, so that when I do the workshop on Saturday, I can really zero in on what are the things that are going on in your communities, what are the challenges that you're finding yourself up against, what are those like burning kinds of questions. So I've chosen the title here of what's in a pronoun. That's an aspect of it that I'm going to really hone in on today. And I'm doing that because I'm finding there's just a lot of confusion out there with people talking about, well, what's your pronouns and he, him, and they, and what the heck is going on? There's a lot that's happening in the news around trans people, like as well, and restrictions and who's doing what and all of the rest of that. And I think it's really important for us to come to grips with this. But I want to say this up front, because I know so many of us on this call are ministers, we're heads of centers, or we're practitioners, is that this isn't about them. Okay.
Right.
As much as you may be coming thinking, I want to know how to be a good ally, and I want to know how to support them. This isn't about them. Okay. Gender is about all of us. It is about all of us. Gender, both from an identity standpoint and this interplay between gender as identity and sex as biology. Okay, so just breathe that in for a moment, because I'm going to be making distinctions between that. Gender is identity. It's how you see yourself. Sex is biology. And both are far more complicated than we would ever want to imagine that it is. So much so that I contend that we're at what I would call a Copernican moment. You know, when Copernicus came around and said that the sun is not going around the earth, that the earth is not the center of the universe. That was just a big pow, wow. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course, the sun rises and sets. Duh, any dummy can look out there and see that the sun rises and sets. But that really is not what's going on. The sun's not moving. Okay, we're the ones who are moving. And that just like this huge paradigm shift of the relationship, like who's doing what, who's doing the moving, who's the center, we're not the center. It's like, what are you talking about? And we have bought into a myth of male and female as being not only opposites, but mutually exclusive, like they are completely separate things. And it's not true. It's not true biologically. It's not true in terms of identity. And we do damage to ourselves when we do not understand this. We do damage to ourselves and to each other when we perpetuate the myth of exclusivity, because it's just not true. Besides being an activist in this for, like virtually my whole life, as was mentioned earlier, I actually have 2 lawsuits in the textbooks around gender identity and sexual orientation issues. But besides all of that, I think when it really hit me the most was when I started doing prison outreach work. Been doing prison outreach work for only over 20 years, going inside of prisons. And for whatever reason, it's always been male prisons. And this one male prison in particular that's been our mainstay, for decades now. And what I know is that if these men had been allowed to just express a lot of what we would call feminine characteristics, if they had been allowed to cry or to grieve, to love, to express some tenderness, a lot of them wouldn't be in prison today. They wouldn't be in prison today. But locked into a hyper masculinity. And it was in prison that they learned to chill out. It was in prison that they learned like how to care and how to have some empathy and some concern and how to grieve and how to cry. But it's to say we really do damage to each other when we don't allow ourselves to be the full expression of all that we're meant to be. Because physiologically speaking, hormonally speaking, we are both combinations. We are combinations of both male and female. And just to accentuate that point, I don't want to spend all my time on it. It's like, do your own research. But I just wanted to pull this up, just kind of accentuate the point. There's lots of, websites and everything. And I just pulled this up about the presence of estrogen in a man's body. Yeah, I'm not going to go into all this probably on Saturday, but I'm telling this to you. So it says the presence of estrogen in a man's body is extremely important since it performs several important functions at once. And there's all these things that estrogen, a female hormone, its importance in a male body. Okay, it ensures that muscle mass gain is processed in the correct way. It's for preservation of bone strength, maintaining a stable nervous system and emotional state. Can't tell you how important estrogen is to your emotions. Maintaining the correct metabolism, prevention the development of muscle and organ hypoxia. That's the ability to get oxygen coming through, even with strong physical exertion. Prevention of the development of diseases of the cardiovascular system, and maintaining the normal appearance of the skin. Okay, this is estrogen, female hormones in a male body. Okay, why is that important? And it's not so much about them. Many of us have aging populations, and the whole what happens with the amount of estrogen we're producing and the amount of testosterone we're producing as we age is a really big issue in all of our health for any number of reasons. So I'm enticing you to understand that this is an issue we need to be more cognizant of for all of our mental as well as physical health, and not just relegate this to a social political thing to understand what them or they are doing over there. Does this make sense? Okay, are there any questions about what I've said so far before I go in and show you something? Okay, I can't see all the hands at once. If
No,
everybody's
no,
good.
I'll let you know if there's a hand up. We're watching,
right.
and so is the admin. We're watching.
Okay. So I'm going to share with you some graphs. And this is like a new way of looking at it in terms of a model that turned out to be very helpful at the Parliament, and I'm really developing into full-on workshop. So what you see here is a circle, okay? And just to help with identification of it, female is pink, male is blue, which is kind of stereotypical in our particular culture. And what you see here is that it's an unbroken circle. And there's color gradations, and the color gradations are referring to the fluidity of this continuum. We tend to think of continuums as a straight line. This is a continuum in a circle where it's very dark. That's where people, in terms of their sense of identity with that gender, is really strong. Really strong. Okay. So as you go down here and it starts to decrease a little bit in terms of color, that's when somebody is identifying female. Let's say this would be like a girly girl at the hot pink. Okay. And this would be, like a macho man in the deep blue. Okay. And as you come around here and it gets a little lower, maybe this might be what we would have called growing up like the tomboy. Okay. Still a female, but not so much into all of the female-ish kind of things that society says is the way in which you're supposed to be a female. Okay. Similar on the male side, where it isn't that somebody's not a man, they're not identifying, or not a male or a boy. They're just not identifying with all of the stereotypical things that they say that a boy has to be. Okay. So they might identify a little bit further down here. This area where there's a little bit of kind of joining here, the term that's being used now is agender. This would be synonymous with the concept of androgynous, which was much more popular, like when I was in college, in my early feminist days, that the androgynous would be the people who were kind of defying either or, that their look could go kind of either way. And people might look at them and not really know, like, who they were. And it just amazes me how much that matters to us. Like, people will go around the block and look at somebody just to see if they can figure out like who they are. And we genderize everything as soon as we hear that a baby's kind of sort of maybe going to be on the way. The first thing we want to know is like, is it a boy? Is it a girl? And we start slating everything from colors to presents to toys to careers to name, everything. It started sliding down this idea of what we have about what's male or female. Now, mind you, there's nothing absolute about this. There's nothing constant about this, in terms of presentation, in terms of what's appropriate, or not appropriate conduct for one gender or the other. if the so-called founding fathers were to show up in your church today in their powdered wigs and tights and all of the rest of that, they would not be considered in our society the bastion of masculinity that they were in their day. Okay, so it's not absolute. It's constantly changing, and it's about norms and values and perceptions as well. So before I go on, I want to ask you, do you have any questions about what I've said so far? Because now I'm about to get into the pronouns. Yes, I see a hand there, Reverend
Yes, Sherry.
Sherry.
And this is not what you said already, but it's came from what you said already. And it's just curiosity.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that estrogen was necessary in the male body. So I'm not willing to make the presumption. And I'm asking, is testosterone
Yes.
necessary in a female body? And if
Yes.
so, what's the effect there?
Yes, that we all, it's like we all need both. We all need both. And the testosterone covers many things, from hair to sexual drive. They both complement each other. And one of the important things I think about the hormones is that they're found throughout the body. They're not even just located like in one particular organ or something. They're in our skin. They're in our adrenal glands. They show up all over the place. So it's that we both, males and females, have both. But I want to put a comma on that, because the idea that even physically people are just males or females isn't quite true either. Okay. Which I'm going to get in a moment, where that also is a myth. But it is to say that every human body, let me put it that way, every human body is a combination of both estrogens and testosterone, and their levels change at different times as we age, and they need certain balances for us to be healthy. Yeah.
Another question by, is it Scopy, Mosley? Or Scoopy?
It is Scopy.
Scopy.
My question is about the place in the diagram where the dark pink and the dark blue meet, and what that point symbolizes.
Well, lucky you. That's where I'm about to go. That is exactly where I'm about to go. Well, let's go. All right, let's go over to the next slide. All right. So take a breath. Take a breath. Now we're getting to the whole idea of the usage of pronouns. So for people who identify themselves in this pink area, okay, they're using the pronouns she and her. For those who really are identifying in the blue area, they're referring to themselves as he and him. Now, everything's not always pink. Everything's not always blue. There are combinations of the pink and the blue. So, when I mentioned before about people's identity being agender, kind of like androgynous, where they are not really feeling particularly male or female. The current term that's being used to define that is non-binary. Binary is when things are opposites. And we tend to make gender binary. We make it an either or, a male or a female. So when people say they are non-binary, they're saying, I don't relate to that construct. That's your construct, but that ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not the reality that I live in. Okay. Now, what makes this, I think, confusing and complicated for most folks to understand who are not in that identity themselves is that the non-binary happens at 2 points along this continuum. It happens here where people are feeling like, I'm not either. I'm non-binary in that I don't really believe so much in male or female. Don't even put me in one of those categories. And the complete antithesis of that, of people who are saying, I am proudly both. I see myself as both male and female. So their non-binary isn't so much, I don't believe that there's male or female and don't try to put me in those boxes. They're the opposite. They're like, oh no, baby, I'm both. I'm both. And don't put me in the box of I have to choose.
Okay.
So I'm going to wear my tuxedo in stilettos or, I'm going to wear, my lipstick and my leather chaps. I'm going to bake the cake and change the car, change the tire in the car. That don't make me have to pick and choose because I'm both. This is a similar situation that I find with a lot of biracial kids, where they're like, look, don't make me have to choose here between mama's side and daddy's side, because I'm both. I'm both. And I'm really, the fact that that's too complicated for you, well, that's not my problem. But don't make me have to choose. Okay. So for the folks that are at this non-binary point, where they're feeling like they are both male and female, or they are neither male nor female, the pronoun that's becoming popular for them is the term them or they. A plural pronoun for their self.
Oh.
And I'm opening it for questions in a second. It's them or they because they're essentially saying, I am she and he. Call me they because I'm both of them. If you call me she, or I go by she, I'm denying my he. And if you call me he, I'm denying my she. And it's just not appropriate. It's just not true. It's a denial. I'm really they. I'm really both. Okay. And for the ones who are not feeling male or female, they're also choosing the they or them, but in a slightly different way, more in a kind of defiant way of saying, once again, I'm not buying. I'm not buying that it's male or female at all. So don't even put me in that box. I'm outside of it. I'm something that's far more complex than your little binary male or female. So no, I'm not even going to go there with you. Okay. So I'm going to stop for a moment and address some questions, because I'm sure there's probably some questions going around there.
And even some comments, just
Yes.
because you've really cleared up the they them thing. It was so confusing to me, and I don't understand what this is about. So thank you for that.
Yes.
I'm so looking forward to your workshop. Sherry, you have a question or a comment?
A question, and I guess, and a comment, and I'm really looking forward to that workshop. Thank you very much.
Yes.
My question, excuse me, is I kind of had figured out the they them for both. That, because I'm a real logical person and I had to take it apart until it made sense to me. But the professor part of me wants a different pronoun for the folks who are neither, because them is like forcing them to choose almost. And I have no idea what that other pronoun would be, but it's not as clear. The them is not as clear for folks who are neither as it is for folks who are both.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. And that's why language is evolving.
Yep.
And there are nuances and complexities on every place here that I could just make your head swim. Like people who are here, the term that's being used for them is cis, cisgender. So when you hear somebody say they're cisgender, they're saying, I relate, that there is congruence between my biology, between my gender identity, and I am in the solid part of this color. So there are gradations and there are nuances. My belief in terms of why they're using the they or the them is that in the English language, when we use those plural terms, they are not gender specific.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So when we say they came in the room, it could be anybody. It could be females, males and females. It doesn't tell you their gender. It just tells you that more than one came in. And I think that's why they're using the they or the them, not simply to, and I really want you to hear what I'm saying, that the usage of these pronouns like this is partially about their own identity, but it's also the gender, what they call gender bending, the breaking of the construct, the putting it out there in such a way that even people who are using she and he to have to start using they and them for other people is a disruptor. It's like it gets us off of this, everything's just binary.
Okay.
I know we used to always say that the personal is political in the 70s and feminist movement, like, even how you live your life is political. Well, there's something similar that's going on here, that there's a statement that's being made about one's identity that's greater than just one's identity.
Yeah. There's a couple more people with their hands up, but I want to say something into the room really quickly. There's a couple of questions in the chat, can you go ahead and raise your hand and speak those questions out? Because it's not really clear what you're asking, and I don't want to try to make assumptions about what you're asking. So if you have a question in the chat, go ahead and raise your hand and ask Deborah so that she can ask for clarity if she needs to. Please. Thank you. Andrea, I see your hands up.
Hi, this is Andrea. I am, first of all, so thankful for this discussion today. I really appreciate you spending time and sharing this with us. I've had some experience. I have 2 college students, and I know on college campuses, this is a constant conversation. And my daughter's girlfriend considers her pronouns to be she, they, or their pronouns. And so I'm learning, and this conversation is just so helpful. I've learned more today even than I've already understood. And I also wanted to add, I put a comment in the chat that I believe that we would not be able to relate to each other as human beings if we didn't have some of both of the hormones of testosterone and estrogen. I think we're all human, and we're here to relate to each other in multiple ways. I love this diagram of the circle because it's a continuum.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a continuum.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Yes,
Reverend Drafton, your hand's up next.
Thank you. I really understand the concept that's being presented, and where I have a difficulty, and I don't really know if this is a difficulty or not, but at some point, something biological or something physical has tipped the scale. So please help me understand this. Even though a person would identify themselves as he, but still has a menstrual cycle on a monthly basis. Help me understand where the biology of what has physically manifested itself comes into play with this. How does that work? I do not have the female genitalia, but I identify as female. So help me understand how that works.
Okay.
Thank you, Reverend Drafton.
I will do that. That's going to be my next slide. So before I go to the next slide, let me see if there's any more questions about this one, and then I'll go to the next one about biology.
Yes, Reverend Dr. Jean, your hand's up next. Yeah. You're muted, Dr. Jean.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like Andrea mentioned, her daughter's friend is she and them. What's the significance of that? I understand, if they want to say they, them, but why she, them, or he, them? Why do they do that?
It's more like gradations. It would be like, instead of them being here, they're here and here. That there's well, I'm gonna do something I've never done publicly before. I'm gonna go for this. And I'm gonna take this off the screen share for a second. Let me take a breath. If I were into these constructs, if I had to come up today and say, what would be an appropriate pronoun for me? It would probably be she and they. The reason why is that Physiologically, I'm female. I identify as female. However, I am completely comfortable with and embracing of my masculine energy. And like we talk about an internal child, it's like I got an internal family. It's like there's a bunch of people up in there, some of whom are male. So like literally, when I go to my closet, I got to make decisions about how butch I'm going to look this day, how femme I'm going to look this day. And I've got boundaries of that where I can only go so far before the other part of me is like, oh, hell no. No, oh, hell no. Which is honestly part of the reason why I don't take off the facial hair, why I wear the mustache. Because it honors something for me. An ex of mine years ago had me take it off, and I felt like such a fraud. It was like, oh, no. I'm never doing that again in life. So it's one of these things where, hey, it may make a lot of people uncomfortable, but that's on you.
Yeah.
That's not my problem, because I am who I am. So if I were to choose within this millennial, what the millennials are doing now and all of them, she and they would probably be appropriate for me.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have two more questions, then we're going to let Reverend Deborah get on with her other slide. Scopy, your hand's up next, and then Reverend Sherry, you're after Scopy.
Okay, my question is, a lot of this gendering seems to be predicated on like social norms. I like dresses, therefore I am a woman. I like trucks, therefore I must be male. How is this escaping that when people are still seemingly making gender choices based on social constructs?
Well, I hear what you're saying, but that's all gender is. It's just a social construct. And like I say, it's very fluid. So what I would say is that instead of people getting away from it, they're redefining it so that what it means to be masculine, what it means to be female. So to young girls today, it's much to my dismay, the superhero is this femme who's, gunning you down with a machine gun. She's Barbie, a violent Barbie, who's doing all the masculine stuff, but again in stilettos. And that's the bastion of femininity now. It's just it's constantly changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Next
the word
question,
fluid.
then I'm going to go to the next slide.
Yeah, Dr. Sherry, you have the next question, the last question for now.
Yes, Reverend Deborah, you said something a minute ago that I've been thinking about for a while. In fact, ever since I got the announcement of your workshop, I've been thinking about it. And that is that language is evolving. Language is, in fact, completely dynamic. And what I see happening is that eventually he and she are going to become personal pronouns. And by that, I mean the way we think about ourselves. We're going to call everybody they and them. He and she are going to become obsolete terms, except in terms in cases of personal internal identity. And I kind of think that's a cool thing.
I agree. I agree. There's probably going to be something like that. And, well, me get to this other thing because I'm about to take it. I'm about to take it to a whole nother level.
We got to come to the workshop for those levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me go. Yeah, that'll be another workshop.
Yeah.
Let me go here. And to talk about the sex and the physiology of it all. That contrary to popular belief of this idea that we are males or females at the point of conception, that is not true. It is not true. So I've got down here in the fine print, and I'll read it. It says, a conceived egg is a single cell zygote with an X chromosome from the mother and either an X or a Y from the father. It's sexually undifferentiated. Okay, it develops along a single path with the genetic potential to become either male or female. Okay, either. Okay, a female will develop unless the Y chromosome is present and activates around the 3rd month. Okay, it's all the same thing unless something is activated around the third month. And then what will happen is that the same tissue will become either female genitalia or male genitalia, but it's the exact same tissue. But here's the kisser. Here's the part that's the secret that nobody says anything about. In the United States alone, 1 in 2,000 births, that's a lot. 1 in 2,000 is birth with what is referred to as ambiguous genitalia, where they're not quite sure if it's male or female, or it's a little bit of both. And what obstetricians have been doing up until maybe the past decade or so, when there's been a lot of pushback, is the doctors assigning a gender to the child, or sex to the child, I should say, and performing surgical operations on them, sometimes without even the parents knowing. Without even the parents knowing. Okay. So what happens here is that at birth, it's agender. It can go either way. The same materials, it'll either become male or it'll either become female. Okay. So that there are some people who biologically have genitalia that isn't quite necessarily one or the other, or they have a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Okay, just breathe that in for a moment. Okay, this is this Copernican moment that I'm talking about, where this idea that we are just absolutely male or female is not true. So just as you have people with their identity saying, I'm a little bit here or I'm a little bit there, this is true with their biology too. You don't know what's underneath anybody's clothes. You don't know what, in fact, is going on with them or is not going on with them. And we are being so assumptive, even things like saying, well, you can only use the bathroom of whatever, like your birth was. Well, what does that say for all the folks here? What does that say for all the folks here? It's not as simple or as simplistic as we're trying to make it out to be. Okay. I'm going to go into this a lot more, on the workshop, but this is part of that answer. So if you were to have an overlay which is going to be the next thing that I'm developing, of both biology and gender as identity and their intersection, which I think is the question that was being raised, is how much of the of an intersection is there, and how much of gender identity is really based upon one's biology. And what I would say is that we don't know. We don't know. But besides the biology, the outer, there's the internal hormonal balances, see, as well. So like as a female, I don't have male genitalia, but just by the amount of hair that I have, I've got higher levels of testosterone. So there are, when people are responding to this, how are they identifying? Like part of it's biology, but part of it is also just how are they relating to the norms? This, yeah, this fits for me. No, this doesn't fit for me. And all of that is changing all the time.
You have a,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Reverend Grafton.
Yeah. Reverend Grafton.
So then I guess what I'm hearing, and please correct me, what I'm hearing is that the biological does not have validity. The biological means nothing. We're not taking into consideration what has manifested after that split takes place. After that third month, either the X chromosome or the Y chromosome dominates. Are we to disregard that? That's kind of what I'm hearing.
No, well, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's disregarded. That to say that comes from the assumption that it is exclusively or supposed to be either or. What I am saying is that it's all a lot more gray. It's not black or white. That even after the third month, even after, say, the Y kicks in, that what comes out on the back end may not be just exclusively a penis. It might be a penis and a little bit of a vulva. It might be a little bit of this and it might be a little bit of that. That it's not a foregone conclusion where all it's going to land. The vast majority is going to land like up here. But I contend that 1 in 2,000, that's a lot.
Yes, it is.
That's statistically significant of people who are somewhere like down around in here. Yeah. Very, very statistically significant. And that we are kind of like when I was growing up and everybody had to be right-handed and people were persecuted when they weren't right-handed. Well, nature just produces some left-handed people, not a big deal, but it was evil and bad. And, and the violence that we were doing to people, forcing them to use the other hand. Well, we're kind of doing the same thing with people with gender. Yeah. And I see a lot of hands going up, and I might have to answer
exactly.
On
we're getting very close to coming to an end, and there's a couple of things that need to happen. So those of you who have your hands up, I'm going to try to get to you, but please try to be as quick as you can with saying what you need to, the question that you have for Reverend Deborah. So I'm going to start with you, Reverend Carol Lawrence Lawson.
Thank you. It's not a question. It's a deep gratitude. My heart feels so open, Deborah. I feel like I'm in the middle of that Copernican moment. I've been noticing more and more and myself wondering, oh, male or female, what fluid. I wonder if that's what that means. And what I'm feeling, even looking at you with the mustache, I'm glad you kept it, because the hair, it could be either to me, and the earrings are feminine and the mustache is male. I thought, what? And what I'm feeling is it dissolving. As you've said, it isn't that. All of that angst or looking around is based on that. I thought I have to choose.
Right.
I'm hearing there's no choice needed, and we're moving into oneness, and there's just individuality. And I thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that. We only have time for one more question. So Andre, I'm going to ask you to please be quick. Sandy, if you could put your question maybe in the chat, and then we can get to it a little bit later. Go ahead, Andrea. Thank you.
One of the things, going back to pronouns, what I am coming to understand is that it's really about what the person wants, how they choose to be addressed. And it's important for me to understand that and to honor that. Is that what you are suggesting? Is that the direction that I'm feeling like to be inclusive means to honor the person. Yes. And we don't know, again, what's going on under the clothes, and it doesn't matter, but it matters how we interact with somebody who chooses to chooses pronouns that are different than what I understood to be when I was growing up.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to define people racially, gender, anything. You don't have that right. It's their prerogative, and that's a big social construct shift to not have the dominant group tell you who you are.
Right.
And one of the things
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off, Andrea, because we only have like 3 minutes. We've got a couple of things going on. If you have some more comment, please put it in the chat, and we'll grab that up at the end. Thank you so much. Reverend Deborah, thank you so much for coming. It's obviously just a fabulous topic, and just so much. We just appreciate you so much. I invite all of you to please sign up for the workshop that's happening on November the 4th. There's a link in the chat for you to go ahead and sign up for that. She'll be talking more, and I'm sure we'll break up into groups, and we have like a couple of hours to do it then. So I do ask you to please come back for that. Our upcoming speaker in November is Paul Hoyt. We'll talk more about that as it happens. There's a new Anton Call to Prayer that's hosted by Reverend Gay Beauregard and Stephanie St. Armand. Please look on the website, anton.org. There's so much going on. The Anton Retreat 2024 is still available at a discounted price of $495 if you sign up by Halloween. After that, it goes to $600. So I would advise you to go ahead and do that if you want to come to the retreat. I absolutely encourage you to do so. It's just a fabulous time. So what I want to say is that in sales,
Pjae, that's a member price. Just be clear that
he said it was all. I asked him earlier. He said it was just member.
No.
It's just a member price. Oh, that's right. You're right. It is a member price. You're right. But you can also get that price if you become a member now between now and then.
Bingo.
So I encourage you to become a member or go ahead and grab that as a member price. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that. You're right. The last thing I do want to say is in sales, there's a thing called ABC, which means always be closing. For Anton, it's ABC. Always be checking the website because there's so much stuff going on all the time. So please do that. Thank you all again. I'm sorry to feel like we're so rushed here at the end, but I just wanted to give Reverend Deborah as much time as possible and give you as much time as possible with your questions. Reverend Steve Albert, I know you have some food for us, so go ahead and throw that up. Thank you all again. Reverend Deborah, I can't say thank you enough. It was just beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, beautiful.
So see you soon.
Yes, you will. We'll definitely be there. Check out the website for more things that Reverend Deborah's going to be doing and more things that we do at Anton, antn.org. Please do that. Check that out. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Reverend Deborah, thank you so much.
Hi.
My pleasure.
Yes, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody that's been on the